Hi friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and I thought I'd do a video that's a little different because my platform here is typically historic tarot decks, and I try to keep it pure to that. But a friend earlier this morning had asked, I was helping a friend, I was going through, they had a question about regular playing cards, historic playing cards, and I have a lot of historic regular playing cards that have nothing to do with tarot. And some that come around the same period of time that tarot was developed. Remember, playing cards came first, in the Middle East, and it became popular in Europe. And it apparently was Italy that, took it a little further and developed a fifth suit that we know now is the tarot deck. But at any rate, these other historic playing card decks are also kind of interesting. And I've never shown them on my channel before. But, in going through my decks to, help my friend, I thought I really ought to do a video on them because they're kind of interesting, and there may be parallels. Now, the two of the three decks that I'm going to show are German. One the game originates as early as 1424. But this particular deck, I think, is dated at 1540. But I think it was known to have been played earlier than that. And it was considered a vulgar deck. It was considered a deck to be used for the lower classes. It would never probably cross the playing salons, the salons of a well-to-do family like in Milan or something like that. But this earliest deck that I have from 1540 is a replica of a satirical deck by the artist, the German artist Peter Flotner, with two dots over the O, circa 1540. And it's an interesting deck and fun, and I want to show it. The second deck I have is by another artist, another German artist, by the name of Jost Amman, A-M-M-A-N. This one dates a little bit later, 1588. Now, their suits are a little bit different than the suits we have, in modern day playing cards. And they also differ, to some degree with the tarot decks. And then the third deck I have is a deck that I got, I think, about maybe 30 years ago in the Betsy Ross house in Philadelphia. I, lived in Philadelphia for a number of years, and when I got married with my children's father, we moved to South Jersey, and I used to go back and forth, to Philly quite a bit with my kids on the train. We'd take a big adventure. We'd hop the train and we'd go to, various like historic locations in Society Hill. I'd show them where we lived at 3rd and Pine. I'd show them Benjamin Franklin's grave. I'd show them the Liberty Bell, and I showed them the Betsy Ross house and probably a few other places. And it's at the Betsy Ross house, I think, that I purchased this deck, which is really kind of cool. It came with a paper wrapping like most historic decks do, but at the time I wasn't smart enough to keep it. I don't know where it is, if I did keep it. And so I put them in a plastic bag, unfortunately. But I don't think that the wrapping had any dates or name on it at all. So I don't think it was really something to keep. It was just, I should have, but I didn't. It came I think it was like a plain brown wrapping, or matched the color of the deck, and then with a string, and that was it. But this one's also interesting because it has Aesop's Fables, and the whole story written out in the Old English that would have been spoken, I guess, in the the late 1600s or 1700s when this would have been played. And if it was contemporary to, Betsy Ross, I guess it would have been early to mid 1700s. And then it also, each corner has a playing card reference. And these suits are the same that we're familiar with: spades, hearts, diamonds, and clubs. So let me flip the camera. Now, none of the decks are in the same order, and I apologize for that. I'm just too lazy, I'll be honest. But I'm going to show each card from each deck, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. It might be a long one. It might be a long one, but there may be. I'm hoping that we see fun parallels. I've never really done a comparison of these three decks before, and certainly there's no reason why they can't be used for interpretation. Absolutely, all three. So let me flip the camera. Hopefully I do it right. And I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is the earliest deck, a Carnufel. I think it was used to play the game Carnufel. It's not written on here, but it's written on this other sheet, which is the same deck. And I believe that this game was also, developed as early as the 1400s. But this particular reproduction is from a German artist, Peter Flotner, circa 1540. As you can see here, there are, let's see, no jacks or queens. And no aces, so it's only a 48 card deck. And it was a lower class trick-taking game called, oh, here it is, Carnufel, played by the lower classes, primarily, I think, for the naughty and satirical images, which reflect the game's lower class origins. Oh, right there, duh. And then this deck is by Jost Amman with 2 M's. And I think the date on this, when I looked it up on a sheet of paper that I have that came with it, is 1588. So it's a little bit later, but these first 2 decks are both German. Now the third deck, as I mentioned, is the one that I got from Philadelphia, Society Hill. Would have been a deck contemporary to, that period of time, and I just thought it would be fun to look at all three. I don't know if this particular deck was developed in Philadelphia, or if it was from a deck they brought over from the UK. I have no idea. Okay, so here we have, I'm guessing this is the 2, even though there's other leaves on here, because these 2 leaves are the most prominent. And right out of the gate, we can see that one person is vomiting on someone else. So, right out of the gate, we see that there's maybe not polite society. This deck would probably never find its way to the salons of the Milan courts, or, the Visconti crew, or, I'm just guessing. Here we have the 4, it's numbered. We have a number on there, 4 books. And we have an individual sitting at his table with what you would think would be a pen, but it looks more like a inverted mop. So I don't know what he's doing with that pen, if it's a pen at all. Maybe it's just a fancy plume, but the tip of that utensil doesn't seem to have a nib. So I don't know what's going on. And then here we have an Aesop's tale on the 4 of spades, which is represented by the story of the dog with a clog. And then they have the story, and then they also have the moral, which I guess could be used as the interpretive thing, if that's what you wanted to do. Thus, daring debauchness do often boast of those loose vices which dishonor most. The 4 of that suit. And the guy's taking a poop. I guess they're using it as fertilizer. And this later deck, by Jost Amman is a bit more polite, So it's like a mother, or it's a wolf perhaps, pretending to be a teacher to the creatures that he would typically be his prey, maybe like a Little Red Riding Hood kind of thing. The wolf does have a red garment with what looks like a hood. Who knows? Maybe this is a precursor to Little Red Riding Hood or something like that. You just never know what connections you can make. And I hope that we see many, many, many of them in the course of doing this video. Here we have the wolf and the crane. And the moral of this one is, well-meaning love is often paid with hate, and a good nature is lost on an ingrate. Well, maybe some of these messages to us today will sink in. And this was the King of Hearts. Let's see if it's a suicide king here. No. He's holding his thing, axe there. Okay, we have the 8 with someone exposing his back end. Okay, yeah, so the Flotner deck is definitely, a cruder deck, but it's fun. And here we have individuals, the 2 of books, hard at work, perhaps an apprentice with a master, bookmaker. And as I said, these cards are not in the same order, unfortunately. I'm just... the tiger and the fox. And the moral here for the Queen of Hearts is, so the young hero on his strength relying rendered him more remark and worth your dying. I don't really quite understand. I should probably read the story and then I'd probably get a better gist of it. So I don't know. This video now is already 12 minutes long, going on 13, and we haven't even scratched the surface. Here's somebody's passing gas. The Ace of Books. The Dog and Ox, and then the moral. Three of Hearts. Oh, so they do have hearts. So I guess those leaves were spades, maybe, and connect to a regular deck, and these are hearts. And I'm sure something's going on here, but I can't readily see what it is. I'm not sure what's happening here, so. Okay, we have what looks like cups. And then for the Ace of Diamonds, we have the ape and fox, Aesop's tale. Again, I don't know what this is, but I suppose that this is probably the vulgar image. Again, I'm not looking at these cards directly. I'm looking at them through the lens, so it's not always easy for me to see what I'm looking at. And the story of the cat and mice for the 2 of Diamonds. I don't readily see the impropriety in this card, but maybe it was there and I just don't recognize it. Or maybe it's just one of the polite cards or neutral cards. So these are daubers, like printers' ink daubers. They look like mushrooms, but that's not what they are. And the King of Hearts. Is that the King? I thought we already did the King of Hearts. Oh, this is the Suicide King. Because he is pushing something through his... So what was I looking at before? What was it? I thought it was the King of Hearts. Let me pause and see what it was. But anyway, this does look like the Unlive himself king. I know you can't say certain words anymore. I'm sorry, I said it. The King of Hearts. And the story here is the Cat and Cock. And let me look at what the other card was that I thought was the King of Hearts. Hopefully I'll do this right. Okay, so it was this card. So I guess this is not the king, right? I don't know if it's the king or a knight, but I don't see a horse. So I'm a little confused. Yeah, I guess this guy looks more like a king. Yeah, and he does have something to his head. So I guess this is considered a knight or a jack. Maybe it's a jack. Okay. Again, I can't see everything that's going on here. We got something happening down here. And maybe, you know, an audience of this time would recognize what's happening. He's got a hat full of candles. Maybe his head's on fire. I don't know. And the number 1. So this is the Ace of Cups or chalices. Again, someone throwing up. Maybe putting out a fire. I don't know. But it's fun. And this isn't even the impolite deck. This isn't even the impolite deck. This one is. So, and the Leopard and Fox is representing the 3 of Hearts in the Aesop's Colonial America deck. So I guess for my subscribers who enjoy this kind of thing, I guess I will do the entire 3 decks. Because how frustrating if you really came here to see these and then I stopped. But I know probably some of you will stop at the 5-minute mark, you know. It's just the way it is sometimes. But I think I'll hang in there for you guys who are interested. The king, I guess this is a king. Looks like a king to me, of club. We have the lion and mouse story. I don't see the mouse. I'm sure he's in there somewhere. And with the moral. Well, this one's not too polite either. This guy's taking a poop. And somebody's looking underneath the monkey's looking underneath the clothing of this guy. So I guess both of these German decks are a little a little racy. And this is the description card that I guess I got out of order here. But, you know, the puritanical deck from, you know, Philadelphia 1700s is, you know, morals of stories kind of thing. So we don't see any of that tradition reflected in these cards. It's always the, you know, it's always an Aesop's tale, which gives us a moral of a story, Jupiter and the Frogs. But you could see how a deck like the Aesop's Fable deck could be used by children to teach stories. And we see that in the, you know, that kind of thing in the, what was the name of that deck? It begins with an M, Montaigne deck, from the, you know, which may have been a precursor of Italian tarot, right? Where we have stories related on the cards, you know. So the story, and I've done many videos on the Montaigne deck. So if you want to like check that out, just look in my playlist, or, you know, look on my, you know, feed for Montaigne tarot. But you see, you know, like decks could have certainly been used for like relay, and even the original tarot, right, was, you know, had concepts such as justice and virtues, other virtues, you know, and vices, you know, like you know, like the devil card being a quintessential vice card, right? So the playing card deck or the tarot deck or any deck of playing cards, you know, these aren't even regular playing cards that we're familiar with, could have all been relaying stories or situations that the audience of their time would know. This looks like a little pea shooter, a kid, you know, shooting the other one in the backside. I mean, why not relay information, you know, while you're playing a card game? I mean, I've done a video. I should release it. I did it at least a year ago for a group, but I didn't sign my rights away to it, so maybe I'll just release it. But, you know, when, you know, the authorities, especially in Italy and Europe, came down, well, with the papal authority, so it'd be Italy, came down on people for playing cards because they said it was shameful. But in my view, I've never read this anywhere, but this is just my opinion. It was because they were gambling and losing their money, which meant less money to put in the church coffers. But that's just me being a real cynic. So I think there was a real effort made to elevate the game of playing cards, which may have been why the Italians developed tarot in the first place, to show or warn of vices and virtues and things like that, which may have already existed to some degree in regular decks of playing cards in other parts of Europe. There's certainly, I don't know if this is a vice or virtue, well, it looks like a violent scene. A man attacking a woman, that's not good. But maybe they were circumstances or situations that people of the day recognized. Queen of Clubs, the Nightingale and Hawk. And I don't know what reasons, the particular Aesop tale was chosen for which card. I don't know why that would have been. I got no information with this deck other than just buying the deck. So the Eight of Spades is the Wood and Clown. The Wood and Clown. Huh. Ungrateful people thus on princes fall, and given some liberties rebel for all. So I don't know what the story was, but... I'm not sure what's going on in that one. The Ace of printing daubers. Two of Hearts. Lion and Forester. The Lion and Forester. Coming up to somebody taking a bath. Well, I guess the Germans didn't have to contend with the Pope like the Italians had to. You know, I guess they were able to get away a little bit at that period of time that these decks were created. And they might not have even been considered all that vulgar. Maybe it was just life, you know. I mean, before indoor plumbing, I guess sometimes life got real. Maybe you had to do what you had to do on the side of the road. I don't know. You know, but, you know, it might not have been all that unusual. I mean, I can't recall living in the 1400s or the 1500s in any other country, but what we would consider unacceptable might have just been regular everyday life for someone else in a different period of time. So something else hanging from his stick other than a rabbit or a hare. I guess this is the suit of acorns. I don't know if I talk too much or talk too little. The fox and the well, the two of clubs. So these two pigs or hogs or boars are playing a game of backgammon. It's very entertaining. The wanton calf. Oh, and now maybe one of those, oh no, those look like boars. They're roasting something. They're playing backgammon too. This is the 6 of Cups. Let's see what this was, where they're playing backgammon. 2, 4, this was the 8 or 9 of acorns. Isn't that interesting? And it's very interesting that they both fell in almost the same sequence, you know, soon enough for me to recognize, you know, a similarity. That's very interesting, isn't it? Since I don't have them in any real order, it doesn't matter how I put them back now. The 8 of clubs. We have fox. The tailless fox. Oh, he doesn't have a tail. A little Bacchus going on, Bacchanalia going on there, right? The cock and the precious stone. Okay. Maybe it's a wedding. I don't know. It doesn't look like a wedding, but there's an event, like a festival or a feast with people, maybe dancing with a musician. This, has a little bit of an Asian flair or Middle Eastern flair, although he is a redhead. The goat in the well for the 8 of Hearts. But you could see how just about any illustrative, deck of playing cards can be interpreted. Even just marks, right? Even just marks on a die or domino. Anything lends itself to interpretation. But especially scenes, that depict life and circumstances that an audience can understand and relate to. He's got his back to us, which is interesting. The bear and 2 travelers. So the suit of acorn seems to be all about boars. And the 10s of all the suits in this particular deck are represented by women. So there's no queens. I think this is an abbreviated deck. I forget which one was abbreviated. But the women are represented by the 10s of that deck. So a rooster putting its head in the mouth of a fox, I guess. It's got a bushy tail. So I guess the first 2 decks are really a better comparison since they come from the same country and they're only about 100 years apart. I guess the Aesop's deck, being an American deck, is a little unusual to add with this, but you just never know what you'll see. I mean, I've read a lot of books, and I say, books are good to read, but I've learned more just from looking at cards and making my own connections and my own parallels. And really, isn't that the best way to learn? Is to absorb, have an insatiable thirst for something, and you just go down so many different rabbit holes, and you make connections that stick in your head and you remember. And that's what makes anything meaningful to an individual, and how you understand how to use it. Wow, this is a really cool card. So it looks like somebody's got a really bad cold. Got a lot of stuff coming out of his nose or her nose. And she's got a hump on her back. I don't know if it's a woman or a man, but I think maybe it's a woman. And again, she's carrying something that was hanging on that other guy's stick, if you recall, several cards back. So maybe it was some kind of intestine from something that we would have known in the day what it was. The fox and stork for that. I don't know if this is the king or the knight or the jack of clubs. The stag looking in water. In EY water? In ye water? I don't know. Maybe some women fighting over something. And we're getting down to less than a dozen each. So thank you for hanging in there with me if you have. I appreciate it as always. Even if you don't find this necessarily what your main interest is, you'll never find it anywhere else, right? I mean, who else is going to do this? Show you these 3 particular decks together. Okay, so this guy looks like he's cleaning this guy. This guy looks like he's washing this guy, maybe? I don't know. From afar. Maybe he was sprayed by a skunk and they need to keep a distance. I don't see a skunk in the picture, but you never know. There's lots of money in this one. This jester, or a fool, has accumulated wealth. So it seems like a similar character. Now this is 2, 4, 6, 7. This is 8, so this would have come first. Interesting. The old man and death. Wow. So death and the hermit meet. An aged man whose shoulders bowed beneath a mighty load in anguish called for death. Death straight approaches and asking his command, cried only S, I don't know what that means, to lend your helping hand. Moral. The wrecked with various pains, yet life still pleases much more than death, who all our sorrow eases. I'll have to really look at that better to understand. But that looks kind of like, the 6 of diamonds here kind of reminds me of death meeting the hermit, unloading his burden. The peacock and pie, P-Y-E. So somebody's getting a thrashing with the switch. The bear and beehives. So these two German decks, you know, within 100 years of one another, or maybe even just 50 less, different artists, different suits, you know. They don't have the same suits. The earlier deck actually seems to be more in keeping with the, you know, the suits that we're accustomed to seeing. But all three of these decks, even though the Aesop's Fables deck from Colonial America, you know, is out of place in this comparison, they all three either show morals of stories or everyday life scenes that, you know, might remind one to be careful or just make someone laugh. It was entertainment after all. The young kite and his mother. The ant and fly. Look at his face. She looks like she might be hiding something behind her back, maybe? I don't know. I'm not really sure. I have to look at it without the lens of the camera in front of me. So remember, this deck, I guess, was 48, so we're done with this deck, and this one, I think, is 52. And as I believe this one is. Because these two decks could be used to play cards like we play them, as long as we adjust to the suits represented. Oh, no, maybe this has, oh, I might have accidentally picked up more than one card at a time with this deck. I think this one definitely was a 52 card deck, and I know I have all the cards, so it's possible I just, you know, picked up more than one at a time here. It's possible. I don't know that I did, but it's possible that I did. So we'll just finish with this. So I most sincerely hope that you enjoyed this video. Like most of my videos, the longer you stay, you may pick up things, you know, that you would have regret it missing, right? You never know what I'm going to say or what connections I'm going to make. But I'm learning too, just like you are. I've looked at these decks, but I haven't looked at them in probably 10 years, So every now and then when somebody, if I'm doing something for somebody else, I'll take the time to review it myself and make new connections for myself. So I hope you enjoyed this very much. And until next time, friends, peace and stay well.